Hello, my dear friend. Tonight, let me tell you the story of a man who was never meant to rule. A boy born sickly and small, in the shadows of a dying republic. Who could have known that this fragile child would one day become the first emperor of Rome? Who could have imagined that the adopted son of a murdered general would go on to build an empire that would shape the world for centuries? Tonight, we step into marble halls and blood-stained streets. We follow betrayal, war, love, ambition, and the dream of peace. We drift into the life of Augustus. Now again, welcome to my channel on Sleepy History. Whether you're listening from the USA, UK, Germany, France, Canada, or anywhere in the world, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it there? Are you already lying in bed? Don't forget to like Wanto Jo, comment Nant, and subscribe Soccer to help support this sleepy journey through the past. Now, take a deep breath, lie back. Turn off the lights, close your eyes, let your body relax, and let this story drift over you like a soft breeze of time. In the quiet hills just south of Rome, nestled amongst ancient olive groves and the gentle hum of cicadas, a boy was born into a world teetering on the precipice of monumental change. His name was Gaius Octavius, and the year was 63 BCE. Not even the most prescient oracle could have foreseen that this quiet child, born into a respectable but not illustrious family, would one day reshape the very fabric of the Roman world, laying the groundwork for an empire that would endure for centuries. His father, Gaius Octavius, was a man of senatorial rank, a diligent and respected governor who, despite his civic duties, remained a devoted husband and father. He nurtured young Gaius with a quiet strength, instilling in him the traditional Roman virtues of discipline, duty, and piety. His mother, Atia, was a woman of noble lineage, a niece of none other than Gaius Julius Caesar himself. This familial connection, though seemingly distant in the boy's early years, would prove to be a thread of destiny woven subtly into the tapestry of his life. The early home of young Octavius was one of relative tranquility, far removed from the tumultuous political intrigues that constantly churned within the heart of Rome. He was raised with a proper Roman education, learning rhetoric, philosophy, and the martial arts, as befitted a young man of his standing. Yet, beneath the surface of this conventional upbringing, a keen intellect and a cautious temperament began to form. He observed the world around him with a thoughtful gaze, absorbing lessons from his elders, a silent student of the complex Roman society. The whispers of war and political strife that occasionally reached Velletri seemed distant echoes, mere background noise to the quiet rhythm of his childhood. He was a boy of delicate health, prone to illness, a stark contrast to the robust image of a Roman leader. This physical vulnerability perhaps fostered a deeper reliance on his mental acuity and strategic thinking, qualities that would later define his reign. He was not a boisterous child, but rather one who preferred observation, a quiet absorption of information that would serve him well in the treacherous landscape of Roman politics. The seeds of his future greatness were sown not in grand displays of power, but in the subtle nuances of his formative years, in the quiet strength passed down from his parents, and in the unseen hand of fate that connected him to the most powerful man in Rome. The tranquil world of young Octavius was irrevocably altered by the loss of his father when he was just 4 years old. This early tragedy, a sudden and profound void, cast a long shadow over his childhood. He was too young to fully comprehend the permanence of death, yet the absence of his father, the shift in the household's rhythm, undoubtedly left an indelible mark. His mother, Atia, a woman of strength and intelligence, took on the primary role of his upbringing, guiding him with a steady hand and ensuring his continued education. Despite the personal sorrow, his family ensured he received the finest instruction available, recognizing the importance of a rigorous education for a young man of his background. He studied under esteemed tutors, delving into the intricacies of Latin and Greek literature, mastering rhetoric, the art of persuasive speech, which was paramount in Roman public life, and honing his understanding of history and philosophy. These studies, far from being dry academic exercises, were the foundational pillars upon which his future power would be built. He absorbed the lessons with a quiet intensity, his natural intelligence allowing him to grasp complex concepts with ease. While other boys his age might have been consumed by youthful exuberance, Octavius exhibited a maturity beyond his years, a disciplined focus that would later distinguish him. He was a meticulous student, his mind a sponge for knowledge, storing away every piece of information that might prove useful. This intellectual rigor was complemented by training in physical pursuits, though his delicate health often made such activities a challenge. He was not a natural athlete, yet he persevered, understanding the importance of physical discipline in the Roman ideal of a well-rounded citizen. His connection to Julius Caesar, though still a formidable and distant figure, began to become more tangible. Caesar, recognizing the promising intellect and quiet determination in his grandnephew, took an increasing interest in his development. He arranged for Octavius to participate in various public ceremonies and military exercises, gradually exposing him to the world of Roman politics and power. These experiences, though perhaps intimidating for a young boy, served as an informal apprenticeship, preparing him for a destiny he was yet to fully comprehend. The shadow of Caesar's towering influence, slowly but surely, began to fall upon young Octavius, shaping his path in ways he could not yet discern. As Octavius transitioned from boyhood to young adulthood, the political landscape of Rome grew increasingly volatile, a tempest brewing on the horizon. The civil wars that had long plagued the Republic were reaching a fever pitch, with powerful figures vying for ultimate control. Julius Caesar, now the undisputed master of Rome, was consolidating his power, but beneath the surface, resentment and fear simmered among the old senatorial elite. It was in this atmosphere of simmering tension that Octavius continued his education, preparing for a future that seemed destined for public service. He pursued his studies in Apollonia, a city in Illyria, renowned for its academic institutions. Here, he further refined his rhetorical skills, practiced military exercises, and immersed himself in philosophical discussions. These were not merely academic pursuits, they were vital preparations for a life in the demanding and often dangerous world of Roman politics. Despite his delicate constitution, he showed a keen interest in military matters, understanding that in Rome, power often flowed from the legionary camps. He trained diligently, perhaps not with the physical prowess of a seasoned warrior, but with the strategic mind of a budding commander. He observed the movements of troops, studied siege tactics, and absorbed the discipline of Roman military life. During this period, a deep bond began to form between Octavius and his trusted friends, Agrippa and Maecenas. These men, intelligent and loyal, would become his unwavering pillars of support throughout his long and arduous career. They were more than just companions. They were confidants, strategists, and loyal lieutenants, forming a triumvirate of intellect and ambition that would prove invaluable. The news of his grand-uncle Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BCE shattered the fragile peace of Octavius's world. The shock of this betrayal, the brutal murder of the man who had become his mentor and patron, was a turning point. It propelled him from the quiet halls of academia onto the blood-soaked stage of Roman politics. He was no longer just Gaius Octavius. He was, by Caesar's will, his adopted son and heir, a sudden and unexpected inheritor of immense power, a vast fortune, and a perilous legacy. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, and yet a quiet determination, a steel resolve, began to harden within the seemingly unassuming young man. The boy from Velletri was gone. In his place, a formidable contender for Rome's future was slowly, deliberately, emerging. The news of Julius Caesar's assassination, delivered to Octavius in Apollonia, struck him with the force of a thunderbolt. It was a moment that ripped the comfortable tapestry of his academic life, thrusting him onto a stage far grander and more dangerous than any he could have imagined. His immediate reaction was likely one of profound shock, followed by a sober realization of the immense burden that had suddenly fallen upon his young shoulders. Caesar, in his final will, had not only adopted Octavius as his son, but had also named him his principal heir. This act, a testament to Caesar's shrewd judgment of character, bypassed many more experienced and seemingly more politically astute individuals. It was a gamble, a calculated risk, but one that Caesar believed would secure his legacy. For Octavius, it meant inheriting not just a vast fortune, but also the immense political capital, the legions, and, most perilously, the legion of enemies Caesar had made. The journey back to Rome was fraught with peril. The city was a viper's nest of intrigue, with various factions vying for control in the wake of Caesar's death. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, had seized immediate power, seeing himself as the natural successor. Others, like Cicero, sought to restore the Republic, while Caesar's assassins, the liberators, were still at large, their hands stained with the blood of the dictator. Octavius, only 18 years old, was advised by many to renounce his inheritance, to retreat from the perilous political arena and live a quiet life. But a deep sense of duty, perhaps even a nascent ambition, stirred within him. He understood the gravity of Caesar's trust and felt a profound obligation to honor his adoptive father's memory and legacy. His quiet resolve, a trait that would define his future, began to manifest. He was careful, measured in his approach, understanding that one wrong step could lead to his swift demise. He secured the support of Caesar's veterans, who saw in him the embodiment of their fallen leader's spirit. Their loyalty, a powerful force in Roman politics, would prove to be his greatest asset. He began to learn the intricate dance of Roman politics, observing, listening, and slowly, deliberately, making his moves. The boy who was once frail and unassuming was now stepping into the light, guided by an unseen hand of destiny, ready to claim his rightful, yet incredibly dangerous, inheritance. Upon his arrival in Rome, Octavius faced an immediate and formidable adversary in Mark Antony. Antony, a seasoned general and a charismatic orator, initially dismissed Octavius as a mere boy, an insignificant claimant to Caesar's immense legacy. He underestimated the young man's shrewdness, his uncanny ability to adapt, and his unwavering determination. Octavius, however, understood the importance of appearances and the power of public opinion. He presented himself as the dutiful son, seeking only to honor his adoptive father and ensure the stability of the Republic. He quickly gained the support of many of Caesar's veterans, who saw in him a tangible link to their beloved general. He shrewdly leveraged his inheritance, using Caesar's vast wealth to pay the legacies promised to the Roman people in Caesar's will, a move that immediately endeared him to the populace and further alienated Antony, who had largely squandered the funds. The political maneuverings that followed were a masterclass in calculated risk. Octavius, despite his youth, played the seasoned politicians against each other. He formed an unlikely alliance with Cicero, the eloquent orator and staunch defender of the Republic, who saw in Octavius a potential tool to diminish Antony's power. Cicero, in his famous Philippics, launched a series of scathing attacks on Antony, inadvertently elevating Octavius's standing in the Senate. This alliance, born of mutual political expediency, was a dangerous gamble for both men. Octavius, with the support of the Senate and a growing number of legions, openly challenged Antony. The conflict culminated in the Battle of Mutina in 43 BCE, where Octavius, alongside the consular armies, defeated Antony. This victory, though hard-won, cemented Octavius's position as a serious contender for power. However, the subsequent deaths of both consuls left Octavius with the bulk of the legions, giving him unprecedented military leverage. This sudden shift in power dynamics alarmed the Senate, who quickly realized they had underestimated the young man they had sought to manipulate. Octavius, with his legions now at his back, marched on Rome, demanding the consulship. The Senate, with little choice, acceded to his demands. The boy who was once dismissed as insignificant had, through a combination of strategic alliances, shrewd political maneuvering, and military prowess, established himself as a force to be reckoned with. The path to ultimate power, though still long and arduous, had now been firmly set. The temporary alliance between Octavius and the Senate fractured quickly after Mutina. Octavius, recognizing the fleeting nature of such partnerships in the cutthroat world of Roman politics, swiftly moved to consolidate his power. He understood that to truly honor Caesar's legacy and bring stability to Rome, he needed more than just the Senate's reluctant support. he needed a decisive victory over his rivals. The Second Triumvirate was a pivotal moment in this consolidation. In 43 BCE, Octavius, Mark Antony, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus formally allied themselves, forming a triumvirate with extraordinary powers for the explicit purpose of restoring the Republic, a thinly veiled excuse for purging their enemies and solidifying their own positions. This alliance, born of pragmatism and shared ambition, marked a dark chapter in Roman history. The proscriptions that followed were brutal and bloody. Lists of political enemies were drawn up, and thousands of prominent Romans, including Cicero, who had once championed Octavius, were executed. It was a chilling display of ruthless power, a stark reminder of the dangers of civil war. Octavius, though young, participated in these atrocities, a grim necessity in the eyes of his pragmatic ambition. The triumvirs then turned their attention to the liberators, the assassins of Caesar, who had gathered significant forces in the east. The decisive confrontation came at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE. This epic clash, fought over 2 engagements, saw the forces of Octavius and Antony decisively defeat Brutus and Cassius, Caesar's murderers. The victory was a profound vindication for Caesar's memory and a monumental triumph for the triumvirs. With their common enemies vanquished, the triumvirs divided the Roman world amongst themselves. Octavius took the west, including Rome and Italy, the heart of the Republic. Antony claimed the east, with its rich provinces and the promise of lucrative campaigns. Lepidus, the weakest of the 3, was given Africa. This division, however, was merely a temporary truce, a fragile peace before the inevitable clash of ambitions. The stage was now set for the final act of the civil wars, a confrontation that would determine the ultimate fate of Rome and the man who would rule it. Octavius, having navigated the treacherous waters of political intrigue and military conflict, stood on the cusp of an even greater challenge, ready to face the formidable might of his former ally, Mark Antony. With the Roman world uneasily divided between the 3 triumvirs, a fragile peace settled over the weary Republic. Octavius, now firmly established in the west, began the arduous task of rebuilding Rome, healing the wounds of decades of civil war. His domain, encompassing Italy and the western provinces, was the traditional heartland of Roman power, but it was also a region scarred by conflict and burdened by the resettlement of thousands of disgruntled veterans. He approached this challenge with characteristic prudence and a long-term vision. Unlike Antony, who reveled in the luxuries of the East and the opulent courts of Cleopatra, Octavius focused on the practicalities of governance. He understood that lasting power lay not just in military might, but in economic stability, social order, and the contentment of the populace. He began to address the pressing issues of land distribution for his veterans, a source of constant friction and potential rebellion. He initiated a vast program of public works, repairing infrastructure, building new roads, and revitalizing the city of Rome itself. These initiatives not only provided employment for a war-weary populace, but also visibly demonstrated his commitment to the welfare of the Roman people. His administrative skills, often overshadowed by his military and political acumen, began to shine. He surrounded himself with loyal and capable advisors, men like Agrippa, his brilliant general and administrator, and Maecenas, his trusted diplomat and patron of the arts. These men formed the core of his inner circle, providing invaluable counsel and executing his policies with efficiency and dedication. While Octavius was meticulously laying the foundations for a stable future in the West, the relationship between him and Antony grew increasingly strained. The vast distances separating their spheres of influence, coupled with their differing personalities and ambitions, created an ever-widening chasm. Antony, captivated by Cleopatra and the allure of the East, seemed to drift further and further from traditional Roman values, alienating many in Rome. The whispers of his perceived abandonment of Roman duty, fueled by Octavius's carefully orchestrated propaganda, began to erode his standing in the eyes of the Roman public. The stage was being set, slowly and meticulously, for the final, inevitable confrontation that would decide the fate of the Roman world. The personal lives of the triumvirs became intertwined with their political ambitions, nowhere more so than in the complex relationship between Octavius and Mark Antony. To solidify their uneasy alliance after the division of the Roman world, a political marriage was arranged. Antony, already married, was persuaded to marry Octavia, Octavius's beloved sister. This union was intended to be a bond of peace, a visual symbol of their shared commitment to the Republic. For a time, it seemed to hold. Octavia, a woman of grace and integrity, devoted herself to Antony, bearing him children and striving to bridge the growing divide between the two powerful men. She often acted as an intermediary, attempting to reconcile their differences and maintain the delicate balance of power. Her presence in Antony's life was, for a period, a stabilizing influence, offering a glimmer of hope for continued harmony. However, the allure of Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, proved too strong for Antony. His deepening entanglement with the Egyptian queen became a source of increasing scandal in Rome, diligently amplified by Octavius's propaganda machine. Antony's open abandonment of Octavia, his Roman wife and Octavius's sister, for an Eastern queen, was a profound insult to Roman sensibilities and a direct affront to Octavius. This personal betrayal was cleverly exploited by Octavius. He portrayed Antony as a man corrupted by Eastern decadence, a Roman general who had forsaken his duty and his people for the love of a foreign monarch. He accused Antony of planning to move the capital of the Roman Empire to Alexandria and to parcel out Roman territories to Cleopatra's children. These accusations, whether entirely true or exaggerated, resonated deeply with the Roman public, who held strong traditional values and viewed the East with a mixture of fascination and suspicion. Lepidus, the third triumvir, had long been sidelined, his influence waning. Octavius, with calculated precision, engineered his downfall, stripping him of his powers and effectively eliminating him as a political rival. This left only two giants standing: Octavius in the west, representing traditional Roman values, and Antony in the east, increasingly seen as a pawn of a foreign queen. The personal drama of Antony's love for Cleopatra became a powerful political weapon in Octavius's hands, skillfully wielded to turn Roman public opinion decisively against his former ally, paving the way for the inevitable final conflict. The escalating tensions between Octavius and Antony reached their boiling point, setting the stage for the climactic struggle that would determine the ultimate ruler of the Roman world. Octavius, a master of propaganda, shrewdly seized upon Antony's perceived disloyalty and his deepening ties to Cleopatra. He skillfully portrayed the conflict not as another civil war between ambitious Roman leaders, but as a righteous defense of Rome against a foreign threat and Antony's descent into Eastern degeneracy. He publicly revealed Antony's will, which allegedly bequeathed vast Roman territories to Cleopatra's children, further enraging the Roman people and solidifying their support for Octavius. The Roman Senate, under Octavius's subtle influence, formally declared war not on Antony himself, but on Cleopatra, skillfully framing the conflict as a defense against Egyptian aggression. This masterful political stroke allowed Octavius to mobilize Roman forces and public opinion without directly engaging in another destructive civil war against a fellow Roman, at least in name. The final confrontation came at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, a naval engagement of epic proportions off the western coast of Greece. Octavius's brilliant general, Agrippa, commanded the fleet with tactical genius, skillfully outmaneuvering Antony and Cleopatra's larger but less cohesive forces. The battle was fierce and protracted, a desperate struggle for control of the seas. In a pivotal moment, Cleopatra's fleet, perhaps sensing defeat, broke formation and fled, followed by Antony. Their dramatic retreat left their remaining forces vulnerable and demoralized. The battle was a decisive victory for Octavius, a triumph that effectively ended the long and bloody civil wars. The path to their final demise was short. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, pursued by Octavius's forces. Knowing their cause was lost, and unwilling to be paraded as captives in Octavius's triumph, both committed suicide in Alexandria. Antony fell on his sword, and Cleopatra, according to legend, allowed herself to be bitten by an asp. Their deaths marked the true end of the Roman Republic, and the beginning of a new era. Octavius, the quiet and calculating young man, now stood as the undisputed master of the Roman world. He had navigated the treacherous currents of ambition, betrayal, and war, emerging victorious and ready to usher in a period of unprecedented peace and stability for Rome, though not without the echoes of past bloodshed lingering in the shadows. With Antony and Cleopatra vanquished, and the entire Roman world now under his singular control, Octavius faced an unprecedented challenge: how to transform a war-torn republic into a stable and enduring state without appearing to establish a tyranny. He understood that openly declaring himself king or emperor would provoke fierce resistance from a Roman populace deeply wary of absolute power after centuries of republican rule. His genius lay not in brute force, but in a subtle and strategic reordering of power, a slow and deliberate transformation designed to appear as a restoration of the old ways. This period, beginning in 27 BCE, marked the formal transition from Octavius to Augustus, the revered title bestowed upon him by the Senate. It was a carefully crafted act of political theater. He ostensibly restored power to the Senate and the Roman people, yet, in reality, he retained ultimate control through a series of carefully accumulated titles and powers. He became Princeps Senatus, first man of the Senate, Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, and Tribunicia Potestas, tribunician power, which gave him inviolability and the right to veto any legislation. He also held Imperium Proconsulare Meius, giving him supreme command over all provincial governors and their legions. These powers, individually republican in nature, collectively granted him unprecedented authority, allowing him to rule effectively without assuming a monarchical title. This delicate balance, this artful illusion of shared power, was the foundation of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. It was a period of over 2 centuries of relative peace and prosperity, a golden age for the Roman Empire, ushered in by Augustus's careful and pragmatic leadership. He understood that after decades of civil war, the Roman people craved stability above all else. They were tired of bloodshed, weary of political infighting, and ready for a strong hand to guide them. Augustus provided that hand, not with an iron fist, but with a velvet glove, subtly shaping the republic into an imperial system that would endure for generations. The foundations of his reign were built on order, efficiency, and a profound understanding of the Roman psyche. He was not a flamboyant ruler, but a meticulous administrator, focused on the practicalities of governance, ensuring the smooth functioning of a vast and complex empire. The true genius of Augustus lay not just in his military victories or political maneuvering, but in his profound understanding of the need for reform and restoration after decades of internal strife. He inherited a republic ravaged by civil war, its institutions weakened, its economy faltering, and its moral fabric frayed. Augustus embarked on an ambitious program of reforms, touching every aspect of Roman life, all with the goal of restoring order, prosperity, and traditional Roman values. One of his most significant achievements was the restructuring of the Roman army. Recognizing the danger of individual generals commanding powerful legions, he created a standing professional army, loyal to the state rather than to a single commander. He established fixed terms of service and regular pay, ensuring the loyalty and discipline of his soldiers. This eliminated the constant threat of civil war posed by ambitious generals vying for control of private armies. He also established the Praetorian Guard, an elite unit stationed in Rome, ostensibly to protect him, but also serving as a crucial instrument of his power. Augustus's economic reforms were equally impactful. He stabilized the currency, improved the tax system, and promoted trade throughout the empire. He invested heavily in infrastructure, building new roads, bridges, and aqueducts, which facilitated commerce and communication across vast distances. These projects not only stimulated the economy, but also served as tangible symbols of his reign's prosperity and stability. Furthermore, Augustus initiated a widespread moral and social reform program. He sought to revive traditional Roman virtues like piety, family values, and civic duty, which he believed had eroded during the tumultuous civil wars. He introduced laws to promote marriage and childbirth, and to discourage adultery and lavish spending. He championed traditional Roman religion, restoring temples and promoting ancient rituals, aligning himself with the gods, and presenting himself as a pious leader. His reign also saw an unprecedented flourishing of arts and literature, a period often referred to as the Golden Age of Latin literature. He actively patronized poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid, whose works celebrated Rome's glorious past and Augustus's new era of peace. These cultural achievements served as powerful propaganda, shaping public perception and legitimizing his rule. Augustus, through these multifaceted reforms, not only brought peace to a fractured world, but also laid the administrative, economic, and social foundations for an empire that would endure for centuries. His vision and meticulous execution transformed Rome into a stable and prosperous power, a testament to his unparalleled statesmanship. Augustus's reign, while largely peaceful internally, was not without its external challenges and military engagements. He understood that a strong and secure frontier was essential for maintaining the Pax Romana. He pursued a policy of cautious expansion and consolidation, focusing on securing Rome's borders rather than limitless conquest. One of his most significant military undertakings was the pacification of Spain, a long and arduous process that finally brought the entire Iberian Peninsula under Roman control. He personally spent time there, overseeing campaigns and demonstrating his commitment to the empire's expansion. He also extended Roman control into parts of Central Europe, pushing the empire's borders to the Danube River. However, his ambitions in Germania proved to be a costly and ultimately tragic failure. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 9 CE was a devastating defeat for Rome, where 3 Roman legions under the command of Varus were ambushed and annihilated by Germanic tribes led by Arminius. This catastrophic loss deeply affected Augustus, who reportedly cried out, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." It served as a stark reminder of the limits of Roman power and led to a strategic shift, with Augustus deciding to consolidate the empire's existing borders rather than attempting further expansion into the unconquered Germanic lands. Internally, Augustus maintained tight control over the vast Roman army, ensuring its loyalty through careful organization and regular pay. He implemented a comprehensive system of provincial administration, sending out governors who were directly accountable to him, minimizing corruption and ensuring efficient rule. He also established the Roman postal service, Cursus Publicus, which greatly improved communication across the empire, allowing for faster dissemination of information and orders. Beyond military and administrative achievements, Augustus cultivated a powerful public image that reinforced his authority and legitimacy. He commissioned numerous statues, monuments, and public buildings throughout the empire, all serving as visible reminders of his power and benefaction. He carefully controlled the narrative surrounding his rule, presenting himself as the humble restorer of the Republic, chosen by the gods to bring peace and prosperity to Rome. This meticulous crafting of his public persona, combined with his unparalleled administrative skills and strategic military decisions, cemented his position as the undisputed leader of the Roman world. A ruler who successfully transformed a fractured republic into a stable and enduring empire, laying the groundwork for 2 centuries of unprecedented peace. Even as Augustus meticulously reshaped the Roman state, ensuring stability and prosperity, he wrestled with one of the most persistent and vexing problems faced by any unacknowledged monarch, the question of succession. Having no direct male heir of his own from his beloved wife Livia, this challenge became a source of constant anxiety and complex maneuvering throughout his long reign. His private life, particularly his relationship with Livia Drusilla, was a cornerstone of his public image and a testament to his pragmatic approach. Livia was a woman of intelligence, poise, and immense political savvy. Their marriage, though initially scandalous due to its circumstances, both were married to others when they met, became a long and enduring partnership, lasting for over 50 years. Livia was not just his wife, she was his trusted confidant and a powerful influence behind the scenes. She was a keen observer of Roman politics, offering advice and often acting as an intermediary in delicate situations. Her dignity and traditional Roman virtues made her a respected figure, providing a crucial element of stability to Augustus's rule. While Augustus was careful to avoid the appearance of establishing a hereditary monarchy, he privately groomed several potential successors from within his extended family. He understood that a clear line of succession was vital to prevent the return of civil war upon his death. His first choice was Marcellus, his nephew and son-in-law, a young man of great promise and charisma. Augustus showered him with honors, publicly indicating him as his preferred heir. However, Marcellus's untimely death in 23 BCE, at the young age of 20, was a devastating blow to Augustus, not only personally, but also politically. It forced him to re-evaluate his plans and highlighted the fragility of his carefully constructed system. The loss of Marcellus was a profound sorrow for Augustus, disrupting his carefully laid plans for a smooth transition of power. It sent him back to the drawing board, forcing him to consider other options, a process that would involve further marriages, adoptions, and the elevation of other family members to positions of prominence, all in the shadow of this crucial imperial challenge. Following the crushing blow of Marcellus's death, Augustus turned his attention to his loyal general and son-in-law, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, as his next potential successor. Agrippa was not only a brilliant military commander, responsible for many of Augustus's key victories, but also a highly capable administrator and engineer. He was a man of immense practical skill and unwavering loyalty, making him an ideal candidate to take the reins of the vast empire. To solidify Agrippa's position within the imperial family and further signal his intentions, Augustus arranged for Agrippa to marry his only daughter, Julia the Elder, in 21 BCE. This marriage was not merely a personal union, it was a carefully calculated political alliance designed to integrate Agrippa fully into the imperial dynasty. Julia, intelligent and spirited but also controversial, bore Agrippa several children, including Gaius Caesar and Lucius Caesar, who were immediately adopted by Augustus as his own heirs. These grandsons, direct descendants of Augustus, were then groomed for leadership, representing the next generation of the imperial family. Agrippa was entrusted with significant commands and responsibilities throughout the empire. He undertook crucial campaigns in Gaul and the East, demonstrating his administrative and military prowess. He was also instrumental in numerous public works projects in Rome, further solidifying his popularity with the Roman people. His prominence grew to such an extent that he was second only to Augustus himself, holding a position of immense power and influence. However, fate once again intervened. Agrippa, a man of robust constitution, died prematurely in 12 BCE, leaving Augustus once more without a clear and immediate successor. His death was another profound personal loss for Augustus, who deeply relied on Agrippa's counsel and capabilities. It also threw the delicate matter of succession into disarray once more, forcing Augustus to revisit his plans. The loss of Agrippa, combined with the continued youth of his adopted grandsons, Gaius and Lucius, compelled Augustus to turn to the most unlikely and perhaps least desired option, his stepson, Tiberius. This decision, made out of necessity rather than preference, set the stage for a complex and often fraught relationship between Augustus and his eventual heir. The shadow of succession, perpetually lurking, continued to cast its long reach over Augustus's later years. The deaths of Marcellus and Agrippa left Augustus in a difficult position regarding the succession. His beloved grandsons, Gaius Caesar and Lucius Caesar, were still too young to assume the immense responsibilities of the Roman state. Faced with this dilemma, and despite a complex personal history with him, Augustus reluctantly turned to his stepson, Tiberius. Tiberius, Livia's son from a previous marriage, was a highly capable general and administrator, but he was also known for his reserved, sometimes sullen disposition, and lacked the charisma that Augustus had sought in an heir. To integrate Tiberius fully into the line of succession, Augustus compelled him to marry his daughter, Julia the Elder, Agrippa's widow. This was a forced marriage, deeply unhappy for both parties. Julia, known for her independent spirit and controversial lifestyle, and Tiberius, austere and reserved, were ill-suited to each other. The marriage was marked by tension and eventual estrangement, contributing to Tiberius's growing bitterness and isolation. Simultaneously, Augustus continued to groom Gaius and Lucius for leadership, showering them with honors and public attention. They were paraded as the future of Rome, while Tiberius, despite his abilities, often felt sidelined and overlooked. He was frequently sent on military campaigns to distant parts of the empire, perhaps to keep him busy or to remove him from the imperial court. The untimely deaths of Gaius in 4 CE and Lucius in 2 CE, both in their early 20s and under somewhat mysterious circumstances, were yet another devastating blow to Augustus. These losses, coming after Marcellus and Agrippa, left him with no viable option but Tiberius. In 4 CE, Augustus formally adopted Tiberius as his son and heir, compelling him in turn to adopt Germanicus, Tiberius's popular and charismatic nephew, as his own heir. This complex arrangement was designed to secure the succession, ensuring continuity and preventing a power vacuum upon Augustus's death. The final years of Augustus's life were marked by a continued focus on securing the imperial succession, a testament to his understanding of the fragility of the peace he had forged. He meticulously transferred his powers and responsibilities to Tiberius, ensuring a smooth transition. Though perhaps not his first choice, Tiberius was the only viable one remaining, and Augustus, ever the pragmatist, ensured that the Pax Romana, his greatest legacy, would endure beyond his own lifetime, even if it meant entrusting it to a man with whom he shared a complicated, often difficult, relationship. The reign of Augustus is universally recognized as a golden age for Rome, a period of unprecedented peace, prosperity, and cultural flourishing. After decades of civil war and instability, Augustus brought a sense of order and security that the Roman people had long craved. He understood that true stability lay not just in military might, but in the psychological well-being of his citizens, their belief in a secure future. One of the most significant achievements of his reign was the establishment and maintenance of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. This was not merely the absence of war, but a proactive policy of maintaining order within the vast empire and securing its borders. Augustus achieved this through a combination of military strength, effective administration, and astute diplomacy. He reformed the army, created a standing navy, and established permanent garrisons along the frontiers, ensuring rapid response to any threats. Under his careful stewardship, trade flourished across the Mediterranean and beyond. Roman roads, first built for military purposes, now served as arteries for commerce, connecting distant provinces to the heart of the empire. Goods, ideas, and people flowed freely, enriching Rome and its vast territories. Agriculture, the backbone of the Roman economy, also saw a resurgence, providing ample food for the burgeoning population. Rome itself was transformed. Augustus famously boasted that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. This was not mere hyperbole. He initiated an extensive program of public works, commissioning the construction of magnificent temples, basilicas, theaters, and forums. He restored dilapidated buildings, improved sanitation, and ensured a reliable water supply through new aqueducts. These monumental projects not only enhanced the beauty and functionality of the capital, but also provided employment and instilled a sense of pride among the populace. The cultural achievements of this era were equally remarkable. Augustus actively supported and patronized leading poets, writers, and artists, ushering in a literary renaissance. This period produced some of Rome's most enduring literary masterpieces, works that celebrated Roman identity, mythology, and the grandeur of Augustus's reign, subtly reinforcing his legitimacy and vision for the empire. Beyond the grand public works and military achievements, Augustus deeply concerned himself with the social and moral fabric of Roman society. He believed that the prolonged civil wars had eroded traditional Roman values, leading to a decline in piety, family stability, and civic virtue. He embarked on a series of ambitious moral reforms, aimed at restoring the mos maiorum, the ancestral customs that he believed had made Rome great. He enacted laws to promote marriage and childbirth, offering incentives to couples with children and penalizing unmarried men and women. He sought to curb extravagance and debauchery, introducing legislation against adultery and public displays of luxury. These laws were not always popular, and even members of his own family, including his daughter Julia, found themselves in conflict with his stringent moral code. Augustus also took great pains to revive traditional Roman religion. He personally oversaw the restoration of numerous dilapidated temples and the construction of new ones throughout Rome and Italy. He revived ancient religious festivals and priestly colleges, emphasizing the importance of piety and respect for the gods. By aligning himself with the traditional Roman pantheon and presenting himself as a devout leader, he further legitimized his rule and fostered a sense of divine approval for the Pax Romana. His patronage of the arts extended beyond literature to include sculpture, architecture, and other visual arts. He used art as a powerful tool of propaganda, commissioning works that depicted him as a wise and benevolent ruler, a bringer of peace and prosperity. The iconic Ara Pacis Augustae, altar of Augustan peace, for example, depicted his family in allegories of peace and abundance, serving as a powerful visual testament to his reign's achievements. Augustus was also keenly aware of the importance of judicial reform. He streamlined the legal system, improved the administration of justice, and ensured fair trials. He established a professional fire brigade and urban cohorts to maintain order within Rome, creating a safer environment for its citizens. These reforms, though sometimes met with resistance, were instrumental in creating a more stable and orderly society, a crucial component of the enduring peace that defined his reign. His meticulous attention to detail, from grand public policy to the smallest aspects of daily life, reflected his profound commitment to the welfare and long-term stability of the Roman state. The personal character of Augustus as a ruler was a complex tapestry woven from pragmatic ambition, unwavering determination, and a deep understanding of human nature. He was not a charismatic orator like Caesar or Antony, nor a natural military commander. Instead, his strength lay in his shrewd judgment, meticulous planning, and profound patience. He learned from the mistakes of those who came before him, particularly Caesar's public disregard for republican institutions, and meticulously avoided the appearance of absolute power. He cultivated an image of a humble servant of the Republic, repeatedly offering to lay down his extraordinary powers, only to be persuaded by the Senate and the Roman people to retain them for the good of the state. This calculated humility was a cornerstone of his success. His personal lifestyle was remarkably modest for a man of such immense power. He lived in a relatively unpretentious house on the Palatine Hill, and his clothing was often homespun by Livia. This simplicity, a stark contrast to the extravagance of some of his predecessors, endeared him to the Roman people and reinforced his image as a man of traditional Roman values. He was known for his dedication to duty, often working tirelessly on matters of state, overseeing everything from provincial administration to the minutiae of Roman law. He valued efficiency and loyalty, surrounding himself with highly capable individuals like Agrippa and Maecenas, whom he trusted implicitly. While he was capable of ruthless action when necessary, as demonstrated by the proscriptions of the Second Triumvirate, his later reign was marked by a preference for diplomacy and persuasion over brute force. He understood the power of consensus and the importance of maintaining the goodwill of the Senate and the Roman people. His personal relationships, particularly with Livia, were central to his life, providing him with a stable and supportive environment. Even his later anxieties over succession were rooted in his deep desire to secure the future of the state he had so painstakingly built. Augustus's long reign, spanning over 40 years, allowed him to implement his vision fully and cement the foundations of the Roman Empire. His patient, methodical, and profoundly pragmatic approach to leadership ensured that the Pax Romana was not a fleeting moment, but a lasting legacy, forever transforming the Roman world and shaping the course of Western history. He died a powerful but beloved ruler, leaving behind a stable empire and a system of governance that would endure for centuries. Even during the peaceful and prosperous reign of Augustus, the shadow of conspiracy and opposition occasionally loomed, a stark reminder that even the most powerful ruler was not immune to threats from within. While Augustus largely avoided the open civil wars that plagued the Republic, subtle intrigues and ambitious plots sometimes simmered beneath the surface, testing his vigilance and the stability of his carefully constructed system. One of the most significant challenges came from members of the old Republican aristocracy who, despite the apparent peace, still harbored resentment against the autocratic rule of Augustus. They longed for the return of the old republic, where their families had held traditional power and influence. While many had been purged during the proscriptions of the Second Triumvirate, some prominent families continued to nurture their grievances in secret, dreaming of a return to the days of senatorial supremacy. These discontents sometimes coalesced into conspiracies, though most were discovered and thwarted before they could fully materialize. Notable among these was the conspiracy of Fannius Caepio and Lucius Licinius Varro Murena in 23 BCE, which was swiftly uncovered and suppressed. Murena, a brother-in-law of Maecenas, was executed, highlighting Augustus's ruthless efficiency in dealing with threats to his authority, regardless of their connections. These plots, though often small in scale, underscored the continuous need for Augustus to maintain a vast network of informers and to be perpetually vigilant. He established the praefectus urbi, urban prefect, and increased the power of the Praetorian Guard, not just as personal protectors, but as agents for maintaining internal security and rooting out dissent. The Pax Romana was not a naturally occurring phenomenon. It was actively maintained through a combination of effective governance, popular support, and, when necessary, swift and decisive suppression of any perceived threats. Augustus understood that to prevent the return of civil war, he had to preemptively crush any stirrings of rebellion, no matter how small. His response to these challenges was always measured and strategic, employing a combination of public spectacle, legal processes, and, when needed, the quiet application of force to ensure that Roman peace remained unbroken. The most significant internal challenge to Augustus's authority, and perhaps the greatest personal trial he faced, came from within his own family, specifically from his only daughter, Julia the Elder. Julia was a brilliant and vivacious woman, highly educated and known for her wit and charm. However, her independent spirit and public behavior often clashed with her father's stringent moral reforms and his desire to present the imperial family as paragons of traditional Roman virtue. Augustus, who had carefully cultivated an image of moral rectitude for his regime, was deeply distressed by Julia's perceived promiscuity and extravagant lifestyle. She was married multiple times for political reasons, first to Marcellus, then to Agrippa, and finally to Tiberius, but none of these unions brought her personal happiness or curbed her rebellious spirit. Her public conduct became a source of scandal and embarrassment for Augustus, threatening to undermine the very moral authority he sought to establish. In 2 BCE, Augustus exiled Julia to the desolate island of Pandataria on charges of adultery and treason. The severity of the punishment, which included stripping her of all her property and forbidding her from consuming wine, shocked many Romans. It was a stark and tragic demonstration of Augustus's unwavering commitment to his moral laws, even when it meant sacrificing his own beloved daughter. His decision was a profound personal agony, but he believed it was necessary to uphold the image of his rule and prevent any perception of hypocrisy. Beyond Julia, other minor plots and signs of discontent occasionally emerged. There were whispers of discontent among some provincial governors or military commanders who might have harbored ambitions for greater power, or among those who felt slighted by Augustus's system. However, none of these ever truly materialized into significant threats. Augustus's sophisticated network of intelligence, his loyal Praetorian Guard, and his shrewd ability to co-opt potential rivals into his system or to subtly eliminate them ensured that no major challenge to his authority could take root. He maintained absolute control, not through fear alone, but through a combination of subtle influence, patronage, and a willingness to act decisively when required. The stability of his reign was a testament to his vigilance and his masterful manipulation of the Roman political landscape, always ensuring that the Pax Romana remained undisturbed, even at great personal cost. While direct conspiracies against Augustus were often swiftly quelled, a more subtle and pervasive form of opposition came from the very system he had meticulously constructed, the constant, underlying tension between the outward appearance of restored republicanism and the reality of his autocratic rule. Many senators and members of the old elite, while outwardly deferential, secretly chafed under the loss of their traditional power and influence. They longed for the days when the Senate truly held sway, and decisions were made through debate and consensus, not by the will of a single man. This quiet dissent rarely manifested in open rebellion, but it meant Augustus had to continuously manage and mollify the senatorial class. He achieved this through a clever blend of honor, patronage, and subtle intimidation. He ensured senators were granted prestigious appointments, governorships, and military commands, giving them a stake in his system. He also maintained a meticulous watch over their activities, ensuring that no organized opposition could gain traction. The public perception of Augustus was crucial to his long-term stability. He understood that legitimacy was not merely about power, but about consent and belief. Therefore, he invested heavily in propaganda, using art, literature, and public spectacles to reinforce his image as the savior of Rome, the bringer of peace, and the restorer of traditional values. Poets like Virgil and Horace, supported by his patron Maecenas, celebrated his reign in epic poems and odes, weaving a narrative of divine favor and historical necessity around his rule. However, even this powerful propaganda could not entirely quell the underlying anxieties. The Roman people, while enjoying the peace and prosperity, were still aware that their traditional freedoms had been curtailed. The suppression of dissent, the exile of figures like Julia, and the sheer concentration of power in one man's hands were subtle reminders of the autocratic nature of the new regime. Augustus's brilliance lay in his ability to navigate these complex waters, maintaining a facade of republicanism while quietly consolidating his absolute authority. He understood that the greatest threat was not necessarily a direct challenge, but a gradual erosion of trust and legitimacy. By constantly tending to the perceptions of his rule, by ensuring both visible prosperity and a subtle hand of control, Augustus successfully managed to maintain the delicate balance that kept the Roman world unified and at peace for over 4 decades, transforming Rome from a perpetually warring republic into a stable empire, but never fully escaping the ghosts of its republican past. Augustus's reign was not merely about establishing political stability. It was a period of monumental urban renewal and architectural transformation that reshaped the very face of Rome. He famously boasted that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, a statement that, while perhaps an exaggeration, vividly captures the scope of his building program. He understood that grand public works were not just about aesthetics. They were powerful symbols of his reign's prosperity, stability, and legitimacy. The most prominent of his projects was the Forum of Augustus, a magnificent complex adjacent to Caesar's Forum. This grand square featured the temple of Mars Ultor, Mars the Avenger, built to commemorate the victory over Caesar's assassins at Philippi. The Forum was adorned with statues of Roman heroes and members of the Julian family, creating a powerful visual narrative that linked Augustus to Rome's glorious past and presented him as the culmination of its destiny. It was a space designed to inspire awe and reinforce the ideological foundations of his new order. Beyond his own forum, Augustus embarked on a comprehensive restoration of Rome's religious infrastructure. He repaired or rebuilt over 80 temples, many of which had fallen into disrepair during the civil wars. This widespread renovation of sacred sites underscored his commitment to traditional Roman religion and his role as Pontifex Maximus, chief priest. These revitalized temples served as centers of piety and community life, further integrating religion into the daily lives of Roman citizens and connecting their well-being to the prosperity of his rule. His building program extended to practical infrastructure as well. He oversaw the construction and repair of aqueducts, ensuring a clean and abundant water supply for the city's growing population. He improved the road network, which facilitated trade and military movements across the empire. The construction of new bridges, public baths, and theaters not only enhanced the quality of life for Romans, but also provided employment for thousands, stimulating the economy and fostering a sense of civic pride. These architectural achievements were more than just impressive structures. They were tangible manifestations of the Pax Romana, designed to visibly demonstrate the peace, stability, and abundance that Augustus had brought to Rome. They created a lasting physical legacy that would continue to define the city for centuries, a testament to his vision and his unwavering commitment to the Roman people. Augustus's vision extended far beyond the physical transformation of Rome. He implemented far-reaching legal and administrative reforms that fundamentally restructured the Roman state, laying the groundwork for imperial governance that would endure for centuries. His primary goal was to create a more efficient, centralized, and stable administration, one that could effectively govern a vast and diverse empire. One of his most significant innovations was the establishment of a professional civil service. He appointed competent and loyal officials to manage various departments of the state, from financial administration to grain supply and public works. These positions were often filled by talented freedmen and members of the equestrian order, creating a merit-based system that bypassed the often inefficient and politically driven appointments of the Old Republic. This centralized bureaucracy ensured that decisions were made and implemented effectively across the entire empire. Augustus also meticulously reorganized the provinces, dividing them into senatorial provinces governed by proconsuls appointed by the Senate, and imperial provinces governed by legates appointed directly by him. The imperial provinces, often those with strategic military importance or requiring a stronger hand, were under his direct control, ensuring military readiness and preventing ambitious governors from raising private armies, a common cause of civil war in the Republic. He also conducted a thorough census of the entire Roman Empire, a monumental undertaking that provided accurate demographic and economic data. This allowed for more equitable taxation and resource allocation, improving the empire's financial stability. The census also served to affirm the loyalty of the provinces and their integration into the Roman system. In the realm of law, Augustus initiated a process of codification and legal reform, aiming for greater clarity and consistency in Roman law. He appointed legal experts to advise him and ensured that justice was administered more fairly throughout the empire. He also established a new system of courts and improved the existing ones, making the judicial process more accessible and efficient for all citizens. These administrative and legal reforms were crucial to the long-term success of the Pax Romana. They transformed a chaotic and often corrupt republican administration into a well-oiled imperial machine, capable of governing a vast and complex empire with unprecedented efficiency and stability. Augustus's meticulous attention to detail and his profound understanding of governance created a lasting legacy that truly brought order out of chaos. The cultural and intellectual flourishing under Augustus was profoundly shaped by his strategic patronage of the arts and literature. Recognizing the power of culture to shape public opinion and legitimize his rule, he actively supported and encouraged a generation of brilliant poets, historians, and artists. This period, often referred to as the Golden Age of Latin literature, produced some of Rome's most enduring masterpieces. Figures like Virgil, author of the epic poem The Aeneid, were central to this cultural renaissance. The Aeneid, a foundational myth for Rome, traced the city's origins back to the Trojan hero Aeneas, subtly linking Augustus to this heroic past and presenting his reign as the culmination of divine destiny. Virgil's work, imbued with themes of piety, duty, and the glory of Rome, perfectly encapsulated the Augustan ideals. Horace, another celebrated poet, composed odes and satires that praised the peace and prosperity of Augustus's reign, often with a subtle blend of humor and wisdom. His works celebrated the simple joys of life and the moral virtues that Augustus sought to revive. Ovid, though later falling out of favor with Augustus due to the perceived immorality of his love poetry, was another towering literary figure of the era, showcasing the breadth of artistic expression fostered by the Augustan peace. This patronage was largely facilitated by Maecenas, Augustus's trusted friend and advisor, who acted as a cultural impresario, identifying and supporting talented artists. Maecenas understood that cultural achievements were a powerful form of propaganda, shaping the Roman identity and projecting an image of Rome as a center of refined civilization. Beyond literature, Augustus also fostered innovation in other areas. He invested in education, promoting literacy and supporting schools, recognizing that an educated populace was essential for a stable and prosperous empire. He also encouraged the study of law and rhetoric, vital skills for Roman public life. The establishment of public libraries further demonstrated his commitment to intellectual pursuits, making knowledge more accessible to a wider audience. Augustus's careful cultivation of culture and intellect was not simply a matter of personal taste. It was a deliberate strategy to reinforce his rule and to create a lasting legacy. By aligning himself with the greatest artistic and intellectual achievements of his time, he ensured that his reign would be remembered not just for its peace and prosperity, but for its profound cultural impact, forever cementing his place as the architect of Rome's imperial glory. Beyond the public persona of the revered princeps, the quiet, introspective man known as Augustus harbored a personal philosophy that profoundly shaped his rule. His approach to power was deeply rooted in pragmatism and a cautious realism, born from witnessing decades of brutal civil war. He understood that ideology, no matter how noble, could lead to chaos if not tempered by practical considerations. Unlike his adopted father Caesar, who was known for his flamboyant charisma and decisive military genius, Augustus was more reserved, even somewhat detached. He preferred careful planning and subtle manipulation over grand gestures. He learned from Caesar's mistakes, particularly the public displays of ambition that ultimately led to his assassination. Augustus, therefore, painstakingly avoided the trappings of monarchy, always presenting himself as the first citizen rather than a king, meticulously adhering to the outward forms of the republic while quietly exercising absolute power. His personal life reflected this practical, almost ascetic approach. He lived in a relatively modest house on the Palatine Hill, in stark contrast to the opulent villas of some of his contemporaries. He famously wore clothes spun by his wife Livia and his sister Octavia, a subtle but powerful statement of his adherence to traditional Roman values and his disdain for excessive luxury. This simplicity was not just a personal preference. It was a calculated political tool, designed to differentiate him from the perceived decadence of the East and to appeal to the conservative Roman elite. His relationship with Livia Drusilla was a cornerstone of his private life and an enduring partnership. Their marriage, lasting over 50 years, was a testament to their mutual respect and understanding. Livia, intelligent and politically astute, was a constant source of counsel and support, often acting as a stabilizing influence. While there were rumors of her ambition and manipulative tendencies, particularly concerning the succession, Augustus relied heavily on her judgment and trusted her implicitly. She was a crucial figure in his domestic life and a powerful, if unofficial, force in Roman politics. This pragmatic approach to life extended to his management of his own health. Often frail in his youth, he took great care to manage his ailments, adopting a disciplined regimen of diet and exercise. This self-control and practicality were hallmarks of his character, allowing him to endure the immense pressures of his long and demanding reign, always focused on the practicalities of governance rather than the fleeting pleasures of power. Augustus's relationship with his family, particularly his direct descendants, was often fraught with challenges, largely due to the immense pressure of the imperial succession. His only biological child, Julia the Elder, was a source of profound joy and, later, profound sorrow. He adored her as a child, ensuring she received an excellent education. However, as she grew older, her vibrant and independent spirit clashed dramatically with his desire for her to embody the austere Roman virtues he promoted. Her multiple marriages, arranged for political expediency, and her perceived public indiscretions ultimately led to her exile, a decision that deeply pained Augustus, but which he deemed necessary to maintain the moral integrity of his regime. This personal tragedy underscores the heavy burden of leadership and the often harsh realities of maintaining an empire. His relationship with his grandsons, Gaius Caesar and Lucius Caesar, whom he adopted and groomed as his heirs, was one of immense hope and doting affection. He took great personal interest in their education and public appearances, showcasing them as the future of Rome. Their early deaths, however, were devastating blows, forcing him to confront the fragility of his succession plans and leading him to the reluctant adoption of Tiberius. The constant struggle for a stable succession meant that his family life was rarely simple or private. Every marriage, every birth, every death within the imperial household carried immense political weight, shaping the future of Rome. Augustus, ever the pragmatist, often subjugated personal sentiment to the needs of the state, making difficult decisions for the greater good of the empire he had built. He endured personal losses with a stoicism characteristic of his public persona, understanding that his role as princeps transcended individual happiness. Despite these trials, his interactions with his family revealed a deeply human side to the formidable ruler. He valued loyalty and devotion, and while he demanded adherence to his moral code, his personal grief over the loss of his preferred heirs was palpable. The intricate web of relationships within the imperial family, a blend of affection, duty, and political calculation, was a microcosm of the larger Roman state, reflecting the very challenges and triumphs of Augustus's long and transformative reign. The philosophy of Augustus, though never articulated in a single treatise, can be gleaned from his actions and pronouncements. It was a philosophy rooted in order, duty, and the restoration of Roman identity after decades of civil strife. He believed deeply in the concept of pax, peace, not as a mere absence of war, but as a holistic state of societal harmony, economic prosperity, and moral rectitude. He saw himself as the divinely appointed agent to bring this peace to Rome. His guiding principle was pragmatism. He was not an idealist in the mold of some philosophers, but a practical statesman focused on tangible results. He understood the complexities of human nature and the inherent instability of absolute power. Therefore, he meticulously crafted a system that appeared to preserve republican institutions while quietly centralizing authority in his own hands. This balance, the auctoritas principis, authority of the princeps, was his greatest political innovation. He also believed in the power of propaganda and public image. He understood that perception was reality, and he tirelessly worked to shape the narrative of his rule. He presented himself as the humble servant of the state, the restorer of ancient virtues, and the bringer of a golden age. This careful self-presentation, combined with his actual achievements, created a cult of personality that legitimized his unprecedented power. His personal character reflected these philosophical tenets. He was known for his discipline and self-control, famously demonstrating restraint even in the face of temptation. He was a meticulous administrator, paying close attention to detail in all matters of state. While he could be ruthless when necessary to secure his power, he preferred to rule through consensus and patronage, seeking to co-opt rather than crush his opponents where possible. The Res Gestae Divi Augusti, the deeds of the divine Augustus, his own account of his life and achievements, serves as a testament to his self-perception and his desire to shape his legacy. In it, he meticulously lists his accomplishments, emphasizing his service to the state and his restoration of peace. It is a carefully curated self-portrait designed to immortalize his rule and justify the extraordinary powers he accumulated. Ultimately, Augustus's philosophy was a blend of Roman tradition, pragmatic statesmanship, and a profound understanding of political psychology. He sought to create a stable and enduring system, one that could withstand the ambitions of individuals and the vagaries of fortune. His legacy is not just the empire he built, but the philosophy of governance he embodied, a cautious, methodical, and profoundly effective approach to power that brought unprecedented peace and prosperity to the Roman world. The long and transformative reign of Augustus, which had ushered in the Pax Romana, finally drew to a close in 14 CE. He died peacefully in his villa at Nola, near Naples, at the ripe old age of 76, having ruled for over 40 years. His death was a quiet culmination of a life lived at the very center of Roman power, a stark contrast to the violent demise of his adoptive father, Julius Caesar, or the dramatic suicides of Antony and Cleopatra. This peaceful passing was a testament to the stability he had meticulously forged, a sign that the new imperial system was capable of surviving the death of its founder. In his final moments, Augustus famously asked his friends, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." This poignant quote reflects his deep awareness of his life as a public performance, a carefully orchestrated act of statesmanship designed to bring peace and order to a fractured world. It also reveals his pragmatic nature, a final assessment of his life's work. Before his death, Augustus carefully prepared for the succession of Tiberius, ensuring a smooth transition of power. He had gradually transferred various powers and responsibilities to his stepson, meticulously outlining his wishes and guiding Tiberius in the intricacies of imperial governance. The continuity of power, the very stability he had worked so hard to establish, was his paramount concern. He left behind a meticulously detailed account of his achievements, the Res Gestae Devi Augusta, which was to be inscribed on bronze pillars outside his mausoleum. This document served as his final will and testament to the Roman people, a carefully curated narrative of his life and accomplishments, designed to solidify his legacy as the benevolent architect of the Roman Empire. His body was brought back to Rome, where he was given a magnificent state funeral. The public mourning was immense, a testament to the peace and prosperity he had brought. He was deified by the Senate, becoming Divus Augustus, the divine Augustus, further cementing his legendary status and providing a divine precedent for future emperors. His passing marked not an end to an empire, but the true solidification of a new era, a Roman Empire that would continue to expand and evolve under the foundations he had so carefully laid. The legacy of Augustus is immense and enduring, truly shaping the course of Western civilization for centuries to come. His greatest achievement was undoubtedly the establishment of the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and stability that lasted for over 200 years. This era allowed Roman culture, law, and governance to flourish and spread throughout a vast empire, laying the groundwork for much of European civilization. He transformed Rome from a perpetually warring republic into a stable imperial power, a system that would be emulated and adapted by rulers for millennia. The political system he created, the Principate, was a masterful balance of republican institutions and autocratic power. By carefully concealing his absolute authority behind a facade of republicanism, he managed to avoid the pitfalls that had led to Caesar's downfall. This system, which lasted for centuries, provided the framework for Roman governance and profoundly influenced the development of modern political thought, particularly concepts of centralized authority and imperial administration. Augustus's administrative reforms were equally impactful. He created a professional civil service, streamlined provincial administration, and established a standing army loyal to the state. These innovations laid the groundwork for efficient governance of a vast empire, ensuring its long-term stability and economic prosperity. The comprehensive census he initiated, the improved tax system, and the vast infrastructure projects all contributed to the strength and longevity of the Roman state. Beyond political and administrative structures, Augustus left a profound cultural legacy. The golden age of Latin literature, which flourished under his patronage, produced works that continue to be studied and celebrated today. The magnificent architecture he commissioned transformed Rome into a city of marble, leaving behind iconic structures that stand as testaments to his vision and the grandeur of his era. His emphasis on traditional Roman values and piety also left an indelible mark on Roman society, even if those values were not always consistently upheld by his successors. The very idea of a unified, stable, and prosperous Roman Empire, as distinct from the chaotic republic, is largely a creation of Augustus. He provided the blueprint for imperial rule, a model that subsequent emperors would follow, adapt, and sometimes struggle to maintain. His long reign allowed his reforms to take root and his vision to become reality, truly earning him the title of Father of his country. The impact of Augustus reverberated far beyond the immediate confines of the Roman Empire, leaving an indelible mark on the very fabric of Western history. His reign established a model of centralized governance and imperial administration that influenced subsequent empires and nation-states for centuries. The concept of a strong, unifying leader capable of bringing peace and order to a vast domain found its archetype in Augustus. His legal reforms, particularly the emphasis on Roman law and justice, became foundational to legal systems across Europe and beyond, contributing to the development of civil law traditions that persist to this day. The very concept of a codified, universal legal framework owes much to the precedents set under Augustus. The cultural output of the Augustan age continued to inspire artists, writers, and thinkers for generations. The literary masterpieces of Virgil, Horace, and Ovid became cornerstones of classical education, shaping literary traditions and artistic sensibilities for millennia. The architectural grandeur of his reign, from the Pantheon, though completed by Agrippa during his time, to the numerous temples and public works, provided inspiration for countless subsequent architects and artists, their influence visible in buildings across Europe and beyond. The idea of a golden age itself, a period of unparalleled peace, prosperity, and cultural achievement, became a powerful trope in Western thought, often invoked by later rulers seeking to emulate the stability and grandeur of Augustus's era. He provided a benchmark for leadership, a standard against which future emperors would be measured. Even the calendar we use today, with the month of August named in his honor, serves as a subtle, pervasive reminder of his enduring influence. And so, the legacy of Augustus, the quiet architect of an empire, continues to drift through the annals of time. His life, marked by personal loss and political struggle, ultimately forged a lasting peace that transformed the Roman world. He was a man who, against all odds, brought order to chaos, securing a future for Rome that far outlasted his own breath. Sleep well now, and let the whispers of ancient Rome and the quiet triumphs of Augustus stay with you like a soft secret in the night.